You go from 25 to, is it top 10 that competes for Japan?
And the last top like finalist, or I think it was 15 girls.
Okay.
So she started with 25 girls, then she cut, and then finally like only 15 girls made it.
Uh-huh. And then they
So
do like a live pageant.
yes, these 15 girls were on the stage actually competing for Miss Japan that night. Yeah.
Uh-huh. What did you wear for Japan?
It was yellow Roberto Cavalli long dress evening gown,
Mm-hmm.
and our it was like a provided by Roberto Cavalli.
Okay,
Yeah.
but
So
at that point,
every girl had Roberto Cavalli.
oh, so Roberto
Yeah.
Cavalli was like a sponsor for Japan, but
Yes.
you got to
Yeah.
go and select a dress out of the closet.
Yeah. But I couldn't pick one. The director picked a dress for each girls. Yeah.
They chose it for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you happy with the decision, or did you feel like it didn't reflect your personality?
I wouldn't wear yellow, but I liked it
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
flowy as well, or was it a form-fitting
Yes.
gown? It was
Flowy.
flowy.
Mm-hmm.
So did you execute the same, like, I call it like the butterfly style at
Mm-hmm.
Japan that you did at Miss Universe as well?
We actually, like, the night before the Miss Universe pageant in
Uh-huh.
Mexico, not Miss Universe Japan, the night before we had like a last biggest rehearsal.
Yes.
And actually, I was wearing this tight golden dress. It's not flowy dress. It was Gucci golden.
Wait, that wasn't the original dress you were going to compete in?
No. And my director saw, okay, it's not it. It's not good for Rio. Rio looked so tight, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So
Uh-huh.
you just brought the other Gucci dress,
Yeah, other
the
Gucci. Yeah,
kimono patchwork. You
yeah.
brought it as like a backup,
Back up. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you rehearsed for television in a different gown.
Yeah.
So no one
So
knew. So it was a
no.
really big surprise when you did what you did because no. So they had seen you be uncomfortable in a rehearsal and probably
Mm-hmm.
thought that's what she's gonna do. So I'm not worried about her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Were you happy to wear the Gucci,
Gucci.
like
Yes.
the dress that you switched to? Like, were you kind of
Uh-huh.
relieved and like now I can be myself?
Yes. Yes.
But you had no rehearsal in it,
Um, I think I did. I think I had a rehearsal, like, the day of the show, I think we have like a little, like,
like a walkthrough.
walkthrough, and I had a dress, and I think we are not allowed to change it anymore.
Yes,
So,
they stopped you at a certain point.
and even my friends who were competing with me, and they liked it, like, Japan, I like it.
Yeah,
So,
it
yeah,
was very different. It's the most
yeah,
unique. So then in Japan, you go on, you do the competition in Japan, and you win Miss Japan.
yeah, I
And then
won, yeah.
immediately, you don't have very long to prepare for Miss Universe after that, right?
Because I won in April, that means I
Mm-hmm.
had like a month, less than a month to prepare for Miss Universe. Yeah.
But the Japan team in Universe is very connected, so they were able to reach out to designers and pull clothes for you like very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Back then, I don't know nowadays, but back then, Miss Universe Japan had like a strong connection to like high
High end
brand,
designers.
high-end designers. So I had like Celine, I had Gucci, like most of them were from Gucci.
Yeah,
Roberto Cavalli. Yeah, I had like tons of beautiful shoes, pair of shoes and sunglasses,
yeah.
like cool, outfit for the pageant.
Mm-hmm.
Because the pageant is like a month long.
All your appearances and stuff as well. Like you had really cool clothes.
Yeah, so like every day people watch you. Every
Yes.
day fans are following you. And this Miss Universe pageant is like a 1 month long, and then
Yes.
you have to live with your, different girls and same hotel room, and we have to do a lot of charities together,
Yeah.
media, and then, rehearsing. So
Mm-hmm.
we kind of live together as sisters.
Yeah. So you didn't have very long as Miss Japan to like become extremely well known, but I'm sure news travels fast and people are already really happy people were getting to know you in the 3 to 4 weeks that you were Miss Japan. You were only Miss Japan for a
Oh,
month then,
yeah,
and
yes,
you're like
you're right.
prepping to go to Mexico City,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and you go to Mexico City, and we know what happens next. It was just the whole thing was incredible. Uh, Um, I want to go back to the dress really quick. We've talked about how like nowadays everyone wears like these custom. There are certain designers
Mm-hmm.
like beaded gowns that are these
Mm-hmm.
incredible creations, one of a kind. They keep them very secret. They're hidden. What you were wearing was off the rack. It was available. The fashion show had just happened where they showed this dress,
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't like an exclusive custom couture gown that it was a one of one. They had already sold this dress to several people, and you
Mm-hmm.
selected it and took it as your backup. So it was interesting. There were no beads. It wasn't sequined. It wasn't
Right.
even really meant to be an evening gown for a
No.
pageant. And that
Right.
was what was so unique. So tell me, that did your board selected it for you, or they showed it to you and you were drawn to it right away?
Actually, I agree to my director's, decision. Like, yes, my golden Gucci is too tight. I can't move the way I want to.
Mm-hmm.
So she changed it. I actually really liked it. And
Uh-huh.
then I had a rehearsal, just one rehearsal with new Gucci, the black dress, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt like, oh, this is me. This is me. I can walk like the way I want to, and this dress was, like a butterfly, like a black butterfly.
Yeah.
And then, I had lots of movement into it, and since I was a dancer,
Yeah.
I can move, right?
Yes.
And they
And it is magic.
it was a magic. If I
Yeah.
didn't have the dress, I think I couldn't win.
Yeah.
Dress help.
I really believe so too, because it was like the dress was stunning. It was beautiful, but it was like she's not wearing an evening gown. What is she wearing? Because no one would ever go out in just like a regular dress, but it wasn't a regular dress because it looked like an evening gown, but it had like a very strong sense of like a kimono, but like
Hmm.
modern and like free. Still honoring this culture, but like so edgy and fashionable. And then it just moved so well. And you
Yeah.
moved so well. And so it was like you just stopped being in a pageant for a minute and you just like lived in the moment. I think the evening gown, that moment is like that's when you won. It was like there's no doubt in your mind. Like she
Hmm.
is like incredible.
I heard that, I was told that after my dress, I picked the dress and, did the flowy butterfly movement, like whoo.
Hmm.
And after that year, everyone tried to do what I did on the
Yeah, and you know
stage.
what? People who are not dancers, it looks really awkward if they try to do it. So,
Yeah.
do you remember that moment clearly, like how you felt? You remember everything? Because I remember it because I've seen so many. There's so many videos and so many TikToks of you of people, and like I only remember what you look like from watching it television. Do you
Hmm.
remember what that felt like inside? That do you remember actually walking down the runway in your evening gown?
Yeah. I enjoyed it, but also I was nervous too.
Uh huh.
And all I remember was I saw Japanese flag in the
Yeah.
audience. Yeah.
They were going crazy.
They
I
were
think
going,
they
yeah.
showed them in a camera shot. Like they were
It was,
just everyone was going, but everyone in the whole place was going hysterical. You could see Colombia, you could see Brazil, you could
yeah.
see other
Yeah.
countries like standing up and screaming for you, like just going crazy because they're like they had never seen someone so comfortable on stage before, and like you were
I
there for them.
was I was so like, so grateful that
Hmm.
everyone was, rooting for me. And
Yes.
I was nervous, so I was told that like everyone told, okay, look at this director's hand, and you have to walk to his hand because everyone would, panic or, in case they panic and, lost the way. So just remember, watch his hands, and he had this white gloves. So I was
Uh huh.
looking at him. I was looking at him like when I was working, but also I saw Japanese flag, and my mom, my grandma was there, my people were
Oh,
there. Yeah, Then,
You saw your grandma in the audience?
yes, yes, she was there. She was
Ah,
right there. So, oh my gosh, my mom, my grandma's there. And also, the fans and the audience. And they had like, Mexican flag, they had Colombian flag, but they were shouting my name.
yeah, yeah.
My
It was
gosh,
like,
I'm so grateful.
mm-hmm.
I was
In
so overwhelmed. Yeah.
Miss Universe culture is extremely competitive, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
mean, but like everyone very much pulls for their country.
Yeah, yes.
You rarely ever see people going crazy over
Yeah.
someone from a different country because they
Uh-huh.
want Philippines to win, they want Colombia to win, they want
Yes.
Venezuela,
Yeah.
and people were like caught up in it so much that they were like forgot where they were and just all started cheering for you.
Yes, I remember that. I'm like, wow, this is the magic. I get the, love and energy from the audience, and instantly I felt like, okay, I have to give it back to them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving my love to these, people who were rooting for me in the audience. So it was such a good energy between me and the audience. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we created like, huge love
Uh-huh.
out there.
Very much
That's what I
so.
remember, yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And the rest is history. I mean, I were you more nervous to compete in swimsuit as a dancer, to walk in swimsuit, or did you just have fun during that part?
I had fun, Everyone tried to look fit, so they didn't eat before the swimsuits. But there were like in a snack table and the backstage, there like a lot of snacks. I don't know why. A lot of snacks and fruits and drinks. And I'm like, okay, this is 10 minutes before the swimsuit. If
Yeah.
I eat whatever I want now, it doesn't affect anything. So I ate a lot
What
of
were you
food,
eating?
lots of chips,
Were
snacks.
people just looking at you backstage in
Yeah,
disgust?
what are you doing? Like, Rio, what are you doing? You're gonna look bloated. Like, no, I'm gonna be on the stage in 10 minutes. My body can, hold
You won't
it,
even be able to tell by then. I
right?
barely swallowed it.
Yeah, I'm hungry. I have to eat. And I ate before the swimsuit. But okay, let's go. And I loved the music. It was Mexican pop star. And you
Uh-huh.
know what? I knew them. I was I was in Tokyo getting ready for Mexico, and I
Uh-huh.
feel like okay, I should buy some like Latino music because I'm moving
Yes.
to Mexico. So I went
Right.
to this CD shop. We didn't have this like music tune back then, 2007. So I went to bookstore CD shop, and
Uh-huh.
I found this Mexican pop idol album. I don't know who they were, but sounds like, Mexican music because I'm going to Mexico. I bought this disc and I was listening to them every single day. And
Uh-huh.
then all the girls were like announced, okay, we're gonna have this pop star from Mexico. Da da da. Like, what? I know them. And
So
no
it's like
one,
the only song you would actually recognize in Mexican
yeah,
current, you got to walk to it.
yeah. Like, oh my God, this song, I was listening to this song every single day.
Oh my gosh, I
Oh my
love
God.
that.
This I feel like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm so blessed, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe like my spiritual like guardian angel is actually protecting me and guiding to the right path. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know who they were. I'm sorry, but oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So it
And
was,
then the rest is history. I think after that it starts to move very quickly in the live show. You get announced top 15, get announced top 10, get announced
yeah,
top 5, and then
five,
you answer your question on stage, and you
yeah.
had a choice of whether to answer in English or to use an interpreter
Mm-hmm.
to make
Yeah,
sure, and
yeah.
you use an interpreter, but you
Mm-hmm.
every time I've ever seen you on stage as Miss Universe or before Miss Universe,
Yeah.
you always begin speaking in the language of the country that you're in, which I love. Like, hola
Oh,
Mexico.
yeah.
You will always like start speaking Thai, and then you'll go into English, and then you welcome yourself to the country or to the stage, and then whatever language that you're there, and
Yeah.
then you move on to English or Japanese, and it's so
Mm-hmm.
cool. And I think they
Yeah.
love you for that. Like she you were still newer to English. It wasn't your strength, but
Mm-hmm.
you took the
Mm-hmm.
time to speak Spanish first,
Mm-hmm.
and then they let you answer the question in Japanese. Were you nervous about answering in Japanese for the Miss Universe? Is that a thing that people discuss? Like, I should try this in English.
Well, we only had 30 seconds to answer, and I knew that I would translate. I had to translate in my,
Yeah.
yeah, I had to translate in my head and then, deliver my words in English. It's gonna take a lot of time. So I didn't think I could finish my answer within 30 seconds
Yes.
without, my translator.
Yeah. And you're like,
So
we're dancers. We plan ahead. We're like, I have this timed out, and it's not the math isn't going to add up. So we got to go in Japanese here.
yes, yes. So it was my best decision I've ever made. Yeah, I was nervous. I was nervous though, and of course I have to think in my head and yes,
Yeah,
so
and then it
that's good.
happened, and then you won, and life took off after that. Did you keep the Mikimoto crown? Do you still have it, or do you have to give it back?
So the crown we have to give it back, but we have a tiara, like a small version of like, similar design to a
Mm-hmm.
Mikimoto crown. So I still have it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. The
hmm
Mikimoto, did you just carry it in your bag, or did you have like
hmm
security that? Because it was expensive, right?
yes, it is expensive. The
It-
crown is in the bank somewhere in New York. I don't
yeah, the
know.
actual Miss
In
Universe,
the
because they have a
safe.
different one. It's like a $20,000 or $30,000 piece of jewelry. Like it's
Yeah.
not just a crown with like fake rhinestones. It's an actual piece of art by a jewelry designer. But
Like a crown is.
you had it with you the whole year, like in your purse or like,
So if I travel to country, I had my tiara, small version of crown.
oh, okay.
But in the big event, I have to wear crown.
Uh-huh.
Then I think two or three managers come with me with this, crown. They had to take out from the safe in the bank.
Oh, so they would
Uh,
go get it and bring it
yeah,
to you.
yeah.
So you didn't just carry the crown around like
No,
in your
no,
carry-on
no,
bag.
no, no.
'Cause it was expensive. You would have been robbed like Kim
Uh,
Kardashian, like traveling with that kind
it
of
is
jewelry. Because
so
it has
expensive.
like real diamonds and real pearls.
Yes, and huge pearl. Huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've never seen that big pearl in my life.
Was it
Yeah.
heavy?
It was heavy, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was,
So
yeah.
your life then becomes very, very interesting because you are still Rio, who's like so sweet and so unassuming. And you immediately go to a press conference.
Yeah.
And this is 2007. So this is like the
Yeah.
heyday of pop culture celebrities. Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan, and you have been launched. This is when people loved women that were at 19, 20, 21. They became iconic very fast. And
hmm
news media covered people too much, almost too much.
hmm
And you immediately win Miss Universe, and you're getting to go to press conference right away. And
hmm
and the owner of Miss Universe at the time was Donald Trump, who
hmm
was not the president of the United
hmm
States, but he was a
hmm
very famous pop
hmm
culture, well known person in
Yeah.
pop culture. And you're immediately not only that's now he's your boss.
Yeah.
Which then The Apprentice was huge. So you're working
Yeah.
with one of the most famous known
Uh-huh.
people. That's
Uh-huh.
your boss, and
Yeah.
you're moving
hmm
into a Trump building. You live in Trump
hmm
Place.
mm
Were you just like, oh my gosh, you're so overwhelmed? Because you
So
never went home. You just stayed in New York.
I stay, yes. Like, to be honest, like I didn't know who he was. Cause I'm sorry, I'm from
No, it's
Japan.
honest because it's not your realm of like
Yeah.
entertainment. You wouldn't
Yeah.
watch The Apprentice.
I didn't. And I was dancing. I was in training. I was in rocket summer intensive. I don't watch TV usually,
Yes.
so to be honest, I didn't know who he was at the first. And I heard
hmm
that he was already like a very famous and powerful guy in the States,
hmm
United States, and I met him for the first time. It was after I won. Yeah, for the press
Yeah,
conference. I
like in
had
the
a press
press.
conference with him. That was the first time I met him.
hmm
And I greeted, like, I mean, and we greeted each other on the stage. No, before press conference. On the
Mm-hmm.
stage, and he's like, "Congratulations, Rio. Welcome to Miss Universe."
Uh-huh.
And he invited my mom and my grandma on the stage too. So actually, my mom met him too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like it's just interesting because he was a very well-known figurehead. This was in Miss Universe was in like the heyday, like very popular.
Uh-huh.
And I mean he owns Miss Universe, he owns Miss USA.
Yeah.
But he wasn't very active as like a leader. He would show up at the big events and press conferences, and then you had a team like your board that actually took care of you, and so you weren't like traveling with him, and you didn't live in
Mm.
Trump Tower. You lived in Trump Place, which
Mm-hmm.
is a very nice building.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Very
had
nice.
you got your own apartment, and you were living on Fifth Avenue, right, or Madison. You were living on the East Side,
East side, upper west, and the fifth.
upper
Yeah, it's
upper East Upper East
like a
Side, I think.
two blocks away from Fifth Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so
Yeah.
close to Trump Tower, like 1 or 2 blocks away.
Yeah, because we would walk over because it was near Radio City as well, and
Yes.
Trump Tower is
Yeah.
1 block away from Radio City. So
Yeah.
you move into an apartment. You're
Yeah.
living with Miss Teen USA
Yeah.
and Miss
And Miss
USA,
USA. Yeah.
and Miss
Mm-hmm.
USA you had just competed against
I know,
to
right?
win Miss
Yes.
Universe.
Yes.
So she was already your sister and your friend,
Yes. Yes.
kind of. Well, you two knew each other from
Mm-hmm.
competing together. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how close you became during the Miss Universe
I think
competition.
so. During the pageant, they like we were divided by like groups, like 5 or 6 girls for one group. Then we're different groups. I didn't really talk to Miss USA in Mexico,
Uh huh.
but we both made it to top 5.
Uh-huh.
So,
And you were so kind. Like your true character show during that time. I don't know how familiar people are with Miss Universe or the year that you competed. It was unfortunate and nothing to celebrate, but Miss USA fell during evening gown
mm-hmm,
on stage, on
mm-hmm,
television. And it's not something that you would want for anyone to compete against. You don't want them to fall so that you win.
no,
And especially as a dancer, we know very well
mm-hmm,
how easily falling can happen, what
mm-hmm,
it takes to recover. You wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I remember immediately you were doing press like Today Show, Regis and
mm-hmm,
Kelly. You were
mm-hmm,
going on
mm-hmm.
talk shows, and the first thing they were asking was, "Oh,
Oh,
how's Miss USA? She fell down on stage." And
mm-hmm,
some people played it a little more funny than it was like
mm-hmm,
to us because we don't think that's funny. And you were always
mm-hmm,
so kind and said, "It could have been me. I could have fallen." It like
mm-hmm,
we all were slipping, and you were
mm-hmm,
just so nice and not perpetuating this idea that they were making a lot out of it already because it was hard on her, I'm sure. And
mm-hmm,
she probably feels like she lost it in that moment
mm-hmm.
because of something that was probably beyond her control. But you were so gracious, and I think as a dancer, you knew it could have been you very easily.
Mm-hmm. Could
You
happen to
know?
everyone. Yeah, exactly. And Miss USA, she was very sweet, very smart. She's a bit older than me, and so she was like my, sister. And she
Hmm.
taught me how to live in New York, and she already, in New York before me. So she
She
taught
moved
me,
in when she won Miss USA. She moved
yeah,
into Trump
yeah,
Tower, so she was already there with the old
there.
Miss Universe.
Yes,
And then the old Miss Universe moved out when you won, and you moved
yes.
in.
So yeah.
People were flipping and switching
Yes,
left and
yes,
right.
yes, yes. So yeah, she showed me around, and then she was like my sister. She was sweet, smart, and then I lived with her and also Miss Teen USA, the teen,
Hmm.
which means she's a bit younger than me. So we 3 sisters, like
It's quite different age groups and way
cool.
different cultures.
Yeah.
What's really funny for me is in America or Western culture, it would be so fun and so exciting to live with groups of people, travel, you're doing
Mm-hmm.
international things, and then on top of it, they tell you, Rio, we're gonna film a reality show
Oh my
at your
goodness.
apartment and we're gonna follow you everywhere.
Yeah.
Most American girls would be so excited at the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think that's like your type of personality. Like
No.
you want to be on stage when you're on stage and but not followed constantly.
Mm-hmm.
But you do it, of course. And tell me about what how reality television felt for you. What did it feel
Yeah.
like? The
Mm-hmm.
show never became super popular or never took off. It was only on like
Mm-hmm.
1 or 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And it was fine. It was a fine show, but it wasn't. It's not like today where there's like lots of drama and fighting and people screaming. But either way, I just it wasn't for you. But what? How did
Mm-hmm.
it make you feel to jump right into something like that?
First, I wanted, I wanted to concentrate on my Miss Universe work, which is like going to different countries to um do a lot of charities or meet new, people and help and so on. But because of this show, I have to stay in New York for a while, and
Uh huh.
I feel like I'm missing out. Oh, but
Yeah.
nowadays, yes, I should like celebrate this opportunity, right? Because
Yeah.
it could make me more famous. It could make me more like, I don't know.
Right.
But
But I don't think you were ever willing to be something that you weren't. And your personality is not someone who is going to argue with people on camera,
mm-hmm,
or you're not confrontational. You're not provocative. You get along with everyone. And those type of people generally don't work on reality television because you're not going to create drama.
mm-hmm.
You know, I think
Yeah.
your drama would have been if they could have been able to watch you train and dance, watch you travel, watch you interact with people. That would have
Uh-huh.
been like fascinating. But if they thought you were gonna fight with people or argue, you weren't gonna do that.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, the TV always wanted us to fight, but I have
Mm,
no like, reason to fight with these girls. I was
right.
fine with them. So, but they never force us to talk about this topic or please fight or please fake,
Hmm.
say things.
Hmm. Americans know what they're looking for on television, so we're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to engage, even if we really wouldn't normally do it. It was more like, oh, you want to fight? Okay, I'm gonna show you a fight. Because it's good television. But even back then, it wasn't like now where you can get like lucrative contracts and become like a multimillionaire, billionaire from products. Back
Mm-hmm.
then, it was more just reality, and you were known as like
Reality.
someone who fought
Yeah.
on television.
Mm-hmm.
So you did that, and then but you were focusing. I mean, you were learning. You were pushed immediately into like the face of certain charities like HIV/AIDS awareness. So you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to like educate yourself
Yes, yes.
and prepare yourself to travel and
Mm-hmm.
speak about something that you may not have been known about before, but it's the choice charity of Miss Universe.
Mm-hmm. So yes. Also, I had English tutor every week. Yes, like
So they were tutoring
two.
you as
Yes.
they. I didn't
Yes.
know that they tutored you. I knew your English was not
No.
as strong then. You were
No.
great at communicating one on one.
Uh-huh.
You could we
But
could have we had conversations, but they wanted you to speak at press conferences and things.
oh my gosh, that's different. So
Yeah.
it's different. And I had a media training, and which like you learn how to talk to people, to the camera, how to make eye contact, how to you know how to talk.
Yeah.
Then also I had a tutor every week, like a couple hours, and also I had to study about AIDS, HIV, and a lot of charities,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very important for Miss Universe uh,
Mm-hmm.
to do that, but in English. So
Yes.
it's
And
different for me. Yeah.
at the same time, you're going to photo shoots like every day, every other day, because they give you a huge list of products and companies that you automatically endorse because Mikimoto gave you the crown, someone gave you this, someone gave you that. And so you automatically start shooting campaigns for like 5 or 6 different things.
hmm The biggest campaign I had was Rolex.
Rolex? I was
Rolex.
about to say Movado. I feel really bad. You did Rolex. The Rolex photos are beautiful. I'm going to show
Thank
our
you.
audience what they look like. But you with your, I think your eyes are even closed and you have on a watch, like, so beautiful.
Thank you. So the
And
Rolex,
did you get a Rolex and do you still have it?
yes, I got a Rolex and I still have it. And yes, I was first. Japanese or even Asian model for Rolex.
So that's huge, like
It
culturally.
was
That's huge
huge.
historically.
It's huge.
Did they
Then
talk to you about it? Or did they explain it to you?
the CEO of Rolex back then, um, he chose me to be the first Asian Rolex model back then, and he told me that they had a meetings about, hiring me as a Rolex
Uh-huh.
model for the campaign. And a lot of people said she looks too Asian. She looks
Uh,
too. She's she's Asian. She looks like Asian because she's Asian. She looks too Japanese. Blah blah blah. And the CEO said that's why she's a Miss Universe. So that's why
yeah.
I'm gonna use her.
That is so
Yeah.
insane to me. And first of all, that's like a terrible thing to say. Like she looks too Asian. The Asian market to sell for branding is a huge market. They're foolish for not having advertised in an Asian market prior because
So grateful that the CEO of Rolex back then, he
uh-huh.
said, yes, she looks Japanese, she looks Asian. That's why she's Miss Universe.
Yes.
She's the
So
face of every race. Like, oh my God,
yes, yes,
that's
as it
such
should
a
be.
compliment. That that those words make me so confident and happy and proud of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Then yeah, and I we had amazing photographer, um, Fadil Felicia,
Oh
and
my God, love
I
food.
love him. He just taught me everything, how it's
Yes.
about like modeling, about being a
Uh-huh.
woman, and about you know beauty. He taught me everything, and that's why I'm here now. And the Rolex shoot by him.
Mm-hmm.
So
Are you still in touch with him?
yes, yes.
That's amazing because
Mm-hmm.
he is legendary.
He is the
And
legend. He is the
he
legend.
takes beautiful photos, but he has
Mm-hmm.
a special talent. But isn't that amazing that you got the contract first to be a model and then you learned how to be a model? But you got to learn from like the most knowledgeable,
Most, yeah.
and you also always still took your dance training and made modeling your
Mm-hmm.
way of doing things. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why it looks special because we don't think like models, we think like dancers. And so you tell stories in your photos really, really well.
Yes, yes.
So now
Mm-hmm.
your Rolex is one of the most timeless brands, iconic luxury brands, and now you're on the face of their campaign along with a lot of other things. You were on a lot of brands, like you were shooting all the time, and swimsuit brands and clothing. And I love the story, like how famous and like how celebrated you became in Japan. Because you were big when you were Miss Japan, but when you won Miss Universe, like everything changed for you, right?
Yes.
What
Mm-hmm.
was it like going back to Japan when everyone in Japan knew you. And you are probably the most famous woman in Japan.
Um, so after I won the pageant, I moved to New York, and then first trip as a Miss Universe was Indonesia.
Uh huh.
Then yeah, so not Japan, Indonesia.
Hmm.
So I have to wait for a couple months to go back to Japan.
Uh
And
huh.
I didn't know what was going, like I didn't know how, they talk about me, and I didn't even think about that. And then just flew back to Japan for the press conference.
Uh huh.
And then there were thousands of people waiting for me to come out from the, gate, like at the airport.
Yeah,
Like,
there are videos of people like chasing you in the airport, and like
like, I'm like, what is this?
You had
Yeah.
security that would keep people just so you could get to the car to leave the airport. But
Yes.
it happened every single time you made an appearance anywhere. The crowd would be there before you got there. It was huge then. Becoming a fan of a female icon, like pop culture character, was like you couldn't go anywhere almost safely because so many people were fascinated by the culture of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so did your moms come to New York quite a bit? Were you able to stay in
Um,
touch with your mom and your grandma?
yeah,
What was that like, or how isolated did you feel from your family, or were you just so busy that they knew you had a job to do?
I was quite busy back then.
Hmm.
But okay, so a few weeks after the pageant, my grandma passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Did you go
the
home?
I couldn't make it to her funeral, but we have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of service after the funeral that
Mm-hmm.
I attended there. But I had to wait, it was like in the first trip to Indonesia as Miss Universe,
Uh-huh.
and my grandma's funeral was about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, should I go back to Japan? Or should I
Uh-huh.
just go to this, work as a Miss Universe?
Yeah, because Miss
And
Indonesia is a huge event.
huge, it's
It's
huge.
the
Like
biggest
everybody,
prelim in the
hmm
world.
yeah,
Yeah.
people are waiting for me. They don't know, what's going on behind
Yeah,
in
of
the scenes.
course.
It's not their fault. It's my, try, um,
Yeah.
thing.
But
It's my, yeah,
the woman who made you Miss Universe
yeah,
isn't there anymore. But you
right.
need to go be Miss
Mm-hmm.
Universe.
So
Yeah.
I didn't know the last time, like, last moment I talked to my grandma was on the stage. And I said, "Thank you, grandma. I'll see you when I'm back in Japan." And then she
Uh-huh.
passed away after that, so I couldn't even talk to her. And I
Oh
had a
my
lot of
gosh.
emotion. Yeah, I couldn't even
Yeah.
think, like, I couldn't think enough to my grandma. I was
Yeah.
so busy, like, people took me to the press conference. I had like 30 seconds to talk to my family on the stage, and I didn't know she had already, like, she had a fever in
Uh-huh.
Mexico, and
Uh-huh.
then she was back in Japan, and then she just, the doctors couldn't help her.
Yeah.
It was like all of a
But
sudden.
yeah, but
So
she raised you and she's the one who made you
yeah.
enter
Mm-hmm.
Miss Japan and she wanted this for you so much, but she was able to see the whole entire thing. So it's
Mm-hmm.
such an incredible story. I know she's there with you. There with you everywhere, but like I feel like she lived her dream by
Mm-hmm.
seeing you
Mm-hmm.
when
My mom told me that in the audience when she like witnessed, like, me winning Miss Universe on the stage, my grandma said, "Okay, I have no regret." She said she has no
oh,
regret, no
oh, that's
regret.
so
Yeah.
sweet. She
So,
probably was like the 10-year-old girl that saw 1952 Miss Japan
hmm
win and felt so proud for her country. And then she got
yeah,
to see her granddaughter do the same thing.
yeah.
And you
So
know,
my,
she was like, I
hmm
made that happen. I got her a winner.
yeah. I think I made her proud, and yeah, my mom told me, my grandma said she has no regret for her life.
I
Then
love that.
she's just, went to the heaven. So
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, okay, should I go to Indonesia? Should I go back to Japan? But what would my grandma say? Of course, she's gonna say,
Mm-hmm.
"Rio, be Miss Universe, do what you need to do." So I
Yeah,
decided
you
to go
gotta
to
work.
Indonesia. Yeah, I worked, and I was so blessed. And after that, I went back to Japan, and it was my first time, coming
Mm-hmm.
home. There are a
And you're
lot of
like hurting on the
people.
inside, but you have a million fans now and you're famous. And you're like, I just want to get to my house and like
Yeah, yeah.
see my family.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Yeah.
a lot for you to handle in the first few weeks.
Yes, it
And you
was
move to New
hard.
York and you live with these crazy USA girls and who are so sweet and but so crazy. And you're like your whole
Yeah.
life is now
Mm-hmm.
it's more chaos than you would want in your life. You just wanted to dance. But now
Mm-hmm.
everything's happening for you and
Mm-hmm.
you're an international celebrity and you're doing all these things. I want to ask you about a couple of weird situations that I want to know. Like, were you like, this is getting weird. I know that immediately, like, press, especially in New York, they covered you very favorably. Everyone loved you. There were also stories where there would be like, someone claimed one time that you left your passport at home. So at the airport, you used your
Yeah,
crown and sash as your passport, and they allowed you to board an international flight without paperwork because you showed them the Miss Universe crown. Did that really happen? You know this story, right?
I do. Yes, actually, it was domestic flight. It wasn't
Okay.
international. If it was international, there's no way. It was domestic, and
You would
then
have tried. You would have tried.
I would try. But yeah, it was, yeah, from New York to LA. Then I forgot my ID.
Mm-hmm.
And Rio, where is your ID? What do you have your passport? Like, I don't have a driver's license. I
Uh-huh.
don't have passport with me. Then
Uh-huh.
where's my ID? My ID was my sash and my crown.
So, they literally
Yeah.
you how did you get back? Same thing at the airport, you showed them the session crown again?
My
Or they
manager
mailed
sent
it to
my
you?
mailed it to me in LA. So
But they let you board a flight domestically without an ID and you did it with a crown and sash.
yes.
I love that story. That story was like big in the news. They're like but they weren't like downing you for it. They were just like, "Uh-oh, Miss Universe, find
Yeah.
some trouble." And no one back then, no one would be like, "How could she do this? That's like not secure. The country's not safe." Everyone was just like, "That's so cute." She like didn't use an ID and she flew across the country. That would never happen now.
Never happened now. Never.
Uh,
Okay, guys, it's 18 years ago.
yeah, I love that. So just to touch on a little bit of it too, I think it was a little weird later this might have been after Miss Universe. Eventually, you know people. You're traveling. You're meeting people. At some point, you became older. It's weird for me to even think about you as an adult, like lady, because I've always known you as like Rio
Mm-hmm.
right out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
You start dating, and then the tabloids start putting photos of you, saying you're dating celebrity, this celebrity or that celebrity, or if you were dating that celebrity, they're taking photos of you. You went to a lot of events, so people took pictures of you
Yeah.
with a lot of different people, but then they were talking about who you were dating in the
Uh-huh.
press, and I don't want to get into like people that you actually dated, but what was it like for you because to have your private life
Uh-huh.
discussed, whether it was true or not, for people to
Uh-huh.
speculate you're dating or talk about who you're dating
Uh-huh.
when you never dated because you were a dancer. You're
Right.
trying.
Yes.
This is your first time
Never.
being like a woman and like being in relationships. What was that like for you?
So some like, like a paparazzi to picture of me and this like older guy who I never like met him before. He asked me to
Mm,
take picture with me. Like yes,
uh-huh.
said yes, and then boom, it was like a real dating, like 50 years older than
Yeah.
you know.
Was that a chef? Was he a chef?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you never
yes.
so
I
you
don't
never
know
dated
him.
him. You never dated
No,
him.
no, it was like first time I we met.
Yeah. He was like
We
a very
didn't we
wealthy
we
he was a
didn't
wealthy
really meet.
celebrity chef, but I can't remember his name, but I was like it wouldn't bother me if she was dating him. I mean, she's like only 22 now, but like but still it's like such a big deal. And I'm like, that's
Yeah,
crazy. But
like
also we have to tell people that the same thing happened in Japan. You told me one time. You tried to pull it up when I saw you at Radio City after you went. We'll talk about that later. But you pulled up an article and you're like, I have to show you something really funny. That tabloids in Japan came to see your mom's studio, and there's a photo of you and me from Radio City, and it started like an online rumor that you were dating an American boy. And so my picture was in the tabloids in Japan, and people thought that we were dating in Japan.
yeah. Isn't that
And you were trying
crazy?
to show it to me, but all the writing was in Japanese. I'm like, what are they saying about me? And you're like, they say I have an American boyfriend now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm her teacher. I was 6 years older than her.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, that happened. It happened. So you were the
uh huh.
first one. Like I'm dating I'm dating American boy. We just walked together and then they people think, we're dating. It's so funny.
Yeah. And also, I don't know. If you had pictures of you and I at the dance studio in Japan, like it's very American culture to have your arms around each other, to be hugging each other. And they don't know. They never heard me talk or saw me in real life. So I guess they could assume. I think it is too, but I remember you laughing like that's definitely not my boyfriend.
Yeah, that's fun. That was,
You were
yeah, I
like he
remember
has a
that.
boyfriend already.
Huh?
You were like he has a boyfriend already.
Yeah, don't worry.
So it's just funny how things take off like that, and it was only after you won Miss Japan that like the you had to deal with little cases of paparazzi and tabloids
hmm
and just celebrity culture. But I think that most of the time you were treated well. Maybe sometimes by Japanese. Did they sometimes think you were a little too Western or that you weren't
yeah.
traditional enough?
Uh-huh. I had a lot of, yeah. I remember that people said I'm too confident. I don't look like Japanese, traditional Japanese, and
Hmm.
I'm too arrogant, and yes, something like that.
Yeah,
And
I think it's a dancer confidence that reads differently to other people who are insecure.
it was tough. It was tough to hear all these negative comments from,
Hmm.
media, like people, and people who I never met,
Yeah,
excuse me, like you don't know me, like please don't judge me. But almost every day I heard this negative comments from people, and
uh-huh.
actually I lost confidence. I lost
Yeah, it
my
did affect
confidence.
you. It really did
Mm-hmm.
affect you.
Yeah,
It's
it
so
did.
weird because that's not who you are at all. But I think maybe you were more upset that you were being misunderstood
Mm-hmm.
because that's
Yeah,
not who you ever were.
no. But
No.
I couldn't correct them, but so I just, maybe that made me stay humble. So I think it was a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to wrap up Miss Universe. I want to talk about one last scandal for you, which is not even a scandal. Rio, the dancer who wore a kimono Gucci couture on the runway to win, you show up the next year at Miss Universe and they announce you for the final walk. And Miss Universe is known as home of
Mm-hmm.
beaded gowns and nude illusion dresses and lava
Mm-hmm.
walks, and you came out for your final walk wearing a tuxedo,
Mm-hmm.
wearing pants. Don't get me wrong, they were the fiercest, most tailored, beautiful pantsuit. But you were
Oh.
literally wearing like a traditional tuxedo that had been modified into a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful fitted. So what was that? Because I know people again misread into your intentions in choosing to wear a pantsuit and wearing a traditionally men's outfit. Like, tell me about
Mm-hmm.
that.
So I wanted to look like if Saint Laurent, like, handsome woman. And I told my boss that I want to wear pants. I want to wear sexy tuxedo for the last final walk. And she said, "What? Are you sure?" Like, yes, I am sure. And okay, but what kind of tuxedo do you want to wear? And I explained to her, I explained to my managers, and they couldn't find the, tuxedo that I'm looking for. So
Where did you get the idea from? Where did it come to you? Where had you seen it before?
I think, like a Frank Sinatra like style, as a dancer, it's like I always thought it's so beautiful, cool,
It's very like
and
New York, New York.
New York, New York, yes. And that was my idea. It just, I just wanted to wear a sexy tuxedo,
And
feminine
you had your hair in
tuxedo.
a low ponytail.
Yeah, yeah, simple
I
and
mean, most
handsome.
people want their last moment to be like a huge dress with a, and you
Mm-hmm.
just walked out with a ponytail and a tuxedo. Like, I'm out
Mm-hmm.
of here, folks. I have a flight in an hour.
Yeah.
So it was controversial. People thought you were trying to promote like feminism or women's rights, or you were making a statement about something political or cultural, social.
Mm-mm.
You just want to wear a tuxedo
I
and look
just
great.
wanted to wear tuxedo. Yeah, that I think that's why, my boss said, "Are you sure? You sure you want to
Hmm.
wear pants, not a dress?" I am so I have this idea and I think it's gonna be so cool. I was just so excited. I didn't think any like, politics or feminism or
Yeah,
nothing. Just
yeah.
I wanted to look so cool and handsome.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
dancers, we do stuff like that. It's so out of the norm for what a Miss Universe would want to do for the final walk. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
anyone has ever done anything different like that ever. But it
Mm-hmm.
was shocking because it is your final moment, but it shows what was important to you. You want to go out
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm doing things my way, and like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't about like long flowing gowns and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just like it was the way that you won is the way that you left. Like you didn't take anything too seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and you were gonna play by the rules and be respectful and be lovely, but you were always gonna be true to yourself and do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So after Miss Universe, give me an idea of what life is like. How do you go back into regular life? Where do you go to work? What do you do on the day you move out of Trump Tower? And how does that lead to where you are now
Mm-hmm.
with a husband and children and all that good stuff.
So, after Miss Universe reign, I went back to Japan and then I lived in Tokyo. I worked as a model, spokeswoman. I did a lot of charities and I still do. Then I opened up a new dance school with my mom in 2009, and that's where I always teach dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did opportunities just keep coming in for you after that? Like it doesn't stop. Were you able to ride that out for a while, or was there a point where you were like, "Uh oh, I think the Miss Universe thing, like no one's calling anymore."
Mm, I loved being Miss Universe. I loved it, and I think I
Mm-hmm.
can do it over and over again. I loved my job at Miss Universe,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't mean I'm like, stuck in the past and like,
Yes.
always talk about like I was Miss Universe.
Yeah.
So
Right. Right.
yeah, so I love new version of myself, Rio, and
Uh
now
huh.
I'm a teacher, and I love dancing. I'm a dancer, and but I love to use my experience, from my Miss Universe era.
Uh huh.
So like I just enjoy like every moment in every
Uh
stage.
huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. And that's the thing is that you had a passion before Miss Universe, so you had a
Mm-hmm.
passion after
Mm-hmm.
because you just picked up and. You went back to what you love and opening a dance school and
Yeah.
teaching. It has always
Mm-hmm.
been part of your dream, and it's still part of your story today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people don't realize is that a lot of people who are in pageants, they're hoping that the pageant will create a life for them. But
Mm-hmm.
you had a life before, and
Mm-hmm.
you were ready to get back to that life and continue the journey.
Mm-hmm.
So you were okay not being Miss Universe. Some people
No.
don't deal with it well if it doesn't get them what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
Mm-hmm.
they do Miss Universe is hopefully to open doors for something they need, but you had already opened all your doors,
Mm-hmm.
so you were good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How long between then,
Mm-hmm.
which I think you were going back and forth from Japan to United States,
Yeah.
and then you met your husband, your future husband.
Yeah. So I met my husband through our friend in San Francisco. And then yeah, we met and we decided to get married like after 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
How long were you in San Francisco when you met him?
just 1 week.
1 week.
1 week
And
for the
you just
work.
felt like you knew you knew.
Yeah, and he knew too.
Did your
And
friends when they introduced you, you all went to dinner or something like that and you just had conversation?
yeah, we had like my husband and I. Yeah,
Like
yeah, we yeah.
did someone set you up on a date or did you go
No,
out with like your mutual friends?
mutual friend. Yeah,
Yeah, you just all
and
were out together and
mm-hmm.
you and he were like having conversation and
Yes,
talking.
yes, yes,
And then you're like, we should go out again tomorrow.
yes.
We should go out again tomorrow. We should go out again for a week. You spent a week together.
Kind of, yeah. Actually, maybe 3 days. 1 week, like first like 4 days, I was busy working and I already met him, but we were not, going out
What
anything.
what were you in San Francisco for originally? What was the
For
purpose of
it
the
was a
trip?
pageant. I was a guest for this, a pageant in San Francisco. I was a
Okay.
guest judge, and yeah, I was presenting flowers and crowns. Yeah, I was
Hmm.
doing that.
What was his perspective of it? How do men treat you differently? He is a professional. He works as an attorney, I believe.
Yes, yes.
So, especially for men that don't are not the demographic for Miss Universe, I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of people are very impressed when they find out. But even people who are impressed don't know how big that
Mhm.
is, or they don't know. They maybe don't want that. Like they don't want that kind of publicity, or you're
Mhm.
so high profile.
Mhm.
What was his reaction to all? How did he handle it and maneuver it?
So he wasn't interested in any like pageant world or
Hmm.
models. Like it's so different from his world.
Yeah,
Then he wasn't there for the pageant. He was just
right.
invited for this just friends dinner and stuff.
You were not
I
Miss
was
Universe. You were not Miss Universe
no,
anymore when you met him, right?
no, no, I
Right.
wasn't.
But he wasn't with you during that year,
No,
the year that
no,
started it all.
no.
So yeah, even as a past Miss Universe though, he has to know there's like
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is what
yes,
she does. She's gonna travel. She's gonna
yeah.
pageants are gonna be part of her life.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
And
still
then,
go? You still
mhm,
go to Miss Universe and like appear on television sometimes as like a guest or like a guest
eh,
judge or. I mean,
yes,
you're at Miss Universe when they need you. You still make
yeah,
appearances there.
yes. I was a judge for Miss Universe 2017.
Okay.
17? Yeah, I did that. Yeah, a few years ago.
Hmm.
Then,
So
yeah,
he doesn't mind it. Like he's not a big fan of like Miss Universe, but like he's happy for you.
he's happy for
Yeah,
me. Yeah,
he understands. He understands
he
what it is.
understands. Yeah,
Yeah. And so
yeah.
you get married. How long after the week long date, 3 day date, did you get married?
And then 2 weeks, we're talking about getting married, and then in May, we met in February, and then we
Okay.
were already engaged in May. Then we already had a wedding in August.
So were you trying to go back to San Francisco as much as possible to see him? Or he was coming to you?
He was coming to me. He came to Japan and talked to my parents, and yes, that's what happened.
Amazing. And then you get married. And something that is super interesting that people don't know about you, you went from small town girl
Hmm.
to Miss Universe to
Hmm.
international icon.
Hmm.
The next step for you was wife.
Hmm.
And immediately you became a mother. You were a stepmother right from the beginning.
Yeah, yes.
And what was that like for you? Like, had you thought about being a mother or a stepmother? It's a huge responsibility. I think that's the biggest responsibility you've taken on that since I've known you, like to become someone's mother like the next day, a fully existing human being and building that relationship as a
Hmm.
stepmother, you know?
So, I was, yes, I have a stepson and I love him and we have a great relationship. But
Mm-hmm.
first, I didn't try to be his mom because he has a real mother. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to replace that and, to respect his mother.
Yes.
Then, so I was like, fun aunt, you know? Like I found like a sister or something like that.
um,
And so we became friends first. So I wasn't really like, okay, I'm gonna raise this, boy to become this person, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was more like a fun sister,
uh-huh, uh-huh.
but, and I never tried to be like,
Authoritative.
mother, okay,
Yeah.
mother. I tried to be his role model, you know,
I
as an,
love that.
as an adult. But it's not easy. It's not easy to be a stepmom, like
Yeah.
have a blended family. And this culture is so different from our culture in Japan. Like, in United States, or California, we have like a joint custody. So even
Yeah.
you're divorced, like you have to still see your, ex
Yes.
supposes, then um I have to talk to, like I have to see her, I have to talk to her about my
Yeah.
stepson. So it was a bit
Interesting.
interesting experience for
Because
me.
you are not confrontational again, so like you're navigating dealing with someone's ex-spouse and being mindful of children that need to be loved and that you have to be mature enough to work towards that goal.
So I wasn't that like, okay, I'm gonna be his mom and I'm gonna raise this
But did
boy.
you feel like you had the upper hand with the ex-wife because you were Miss Universe, where you're like, okay, I got this.
But I went through a lot of situations as a Miss Universe and also as a dancer. Like I can manage everything. I'm confident that I can overcome any situation. So,
Sure.
yeah, just always be positive, always be, look ahead and plan
Yeah.
ahead. So
Hmm.
I don't really have that, difficulty to co-parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's always fun. But it's not easy. But it's not easy to be a mother of my daughter too. So it's anyway the
Yeah. Yeah.
parenting is
That's
difficult.
what I was gonna get to. Then, how long between then you get adjusted and you have a new family? You move to San Francisco,
Yeah,
and then how long until your daughter came along? Now, this is the part
yeah.
that's crazy to me. You have an actual like you had a
Yeah.
child and like
Mm-hmm.
you never were a child to me. You were an adult, but you were like Rio, like
Yeah.
sweet Rio, 19 years old, and now you're
Yeah.
like mom.
Mom.
Hmm.
So after like, maybe we married 5 years, then
Uh-huh.
and then COVID hit the world.
Ah,
And
yeah.
then I couldn't go back to Japan. I couldn't.
Oh,
And then I decided to stay here. Then that's the when I decided to have a baby. Then
yes. So did
yeah.
you not see your mom the whole time during COVID?
No. I didn't see my family for 2 years. two
Yeah, that's
years.
hard.
No, it was hard. And I went through pregnancy and already had a baby. And then the first time, going back to Japan after COVID, I had a baby. And mom's like, okay, one more person,
So
one more
you
person added.
so you took her back to Japan with you the when you went back for the first time?
Yeah.
How old was she?
She was 6 months
Oh
before,
my
yeah,
gosh.
6 months.
So you now have a 6 month old, but you're getting to finally take her. I'm sure it means so much to you to expose her to,
Mm-hmm.
teach her about, show her the love of like the Japanese culture because it's such a huge part of your identity.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like navigating
Mm-hmm.
having an American child?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And are
Yeah.
you teaching her Japanese as well?
Yes, she speaks Japanese.
Okay, good.
Yes, I'm teaching her Japanese. She also goes to Japanese preschool in here, United States.
Um,
Yeah, and then I always take her back to Japan.
uh-huh.
Then I put her in Japanese kindergarten
Hmm.
there. So she
Yeah.
has a lot of opportunities to speak Japanese. So actually her Japanese is better than her English.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Is it
She dreams in Japanese, I think, because she says
okay?
something in
Japanese is
Japanese.
her first language then, because I've
For
always
now,
heard
yeah.
that whichever one you dream in,
Uh-huh.
that's your primary. But if you're exposed to English long enough,
Yeah.
one day it will switch to English
Switch
dreams,
to, yeah.
and that's when you've switched to English as your primary.
Well, that's
I mean, you
what,
still know both, but then you
yeah.
eventually, if you keep going, you start forgetting words in
Mm-hmm.
like Japanese. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to use both. I'm so glad she's around you because you she needs that. I wish I was multilingual, and I wish that my parents had. If I had family members who spoke other languages, sometimes they'll forego that and give into American culture, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like no, they should know, completely all
Mm-hmm.
of it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch on Radio City, how we met each other. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about you coming to the Radio City Summer Intensive,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a funny story about that. When you did the summer intensive, I have photos of us together
Yeah.
when you were a student and
Uh-huh.
your mom took some of them. I think I have a photo with your mom too. And then you disappeared. I'm like, where's Rio? I thought she was gonna come back. They're like, Rio's Miss Universe. I'm like, what? I missed this? And so I was like, they're like, yes, she's in New York. She's living in Trump Place. And I'm like, that's like 3 blocks from here, from Radio City. I was at Radio City.
Mm-hmm.
But we were in the middle of the summer program again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no way. It was a different time, so we didn't like exchange cell phone numbers. Like you and I didn't exchange cell phone numbers. We didn't have Facebook or Instagram.
No.
And so I remember being on lunch break from Radio City, and I looked in my phone, Googled Miss Universe organization, and I called the number. There's a number, like an office, the Miss Universe offices. I called the number, and someone answered. I'm like, "Hi, I want to talk. Can I please speak to Rio?" I don't think I said it like that. I said like, "Hi, I'm trying to get in touch with Rio. I'm not like a business or media or sponsor. I'm one of her friends, and I heard she's back in New York, and I want to see if I could get in touch with her." And they were
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay, can I have your name? Can I have your phone number?" And they're like, "We'll look into it and see what we can do." And I'm like, nothing's gonna happen because these people probably think I'm a crazy stalker. And like, 10 minutes later, my phone starts ringing and it's a New York number and it was Rio. And they had called Rio and said, someone named Christopher Dean is looking for you. And she's like, oh, yeah, give me the number. I'll call it. And you called. And like 30 minutes later, you were walking over from
Yeah,
Trump Tower to
we're
Radio City.
neighbors. Yeah.
And we're like, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, and you were on break from filming the reality show, and you were like,
Mhm.
I can finally get to hang out with like people that I know. And I took you in,
Mhm.
and all your friends from the summer before, everyone was screaming and like
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
happy for you, but it was like sorority. It wasn't like fans. Everyone was so happy to see you, and I like smuggled you into Radio City, and we had lunch together,
Yeah.
and we went shopping, and that kind of started the fun side. When you weren't working, I would come and get you and like steal you, or we would go to dinner or lunch, and like you got to be like not Miss Universe for a little while,
Yeah,
but you
that
were
was
still
fun.
wearing like an amazing wardrobe and like looking like a supermodel and like
Oh.
hair. So
Yeah, I
that was probably
remember that.
weird. If you ever call Miss Universe and you are friends with Miss Universe,
Mhm.
they will
Mhm.
connect you with her. But if you're
Mhm.
not, don't call Miss Universe. It's not.
Wow.
Yeah, that was amazing times. So tell me now, what is next for you? Like, I know that you have stuff you're working on with your dance school in Japan,
Mhm.
and I know there's some things that you're dreaming and wishing for. Tell me what is happening
Mhm.
next for your dance school.
Right now I'm back and forth between Japan and the United States. I always want to teach like through dancing. I want to help people live healthier
Mm-hmm.
mentally, physically. And then I hope to, inspire children to like grow, how do you say it, that strength
Uh-huh.
to like pursue their dreams. That's what I want to teach. Then, I someday I like to bring my dancers here
Mm-hmm.
and I want them to perform. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like I did,
Uh-huh.
20 years ago. And I want to show them the view that I saw.
Mm.
It was amazing. I want them to feel the magic too. So, I like to
It's
bring my
life
students.
changing.
Yeah,
It's
it's
life
life
changing.
changing. And, after COVID, people kind of, stop, like, how do you say, like, make like a real relationship, like, friendship
Yeah.
relationship. It's always like, on like media or SNS, something like that.
Yes.
But dancing, you have to perform, you have to use your body,
Uh-huh.
you know, you have to
Yeah.
be always like a present in life.
Right.
So I
That's why the
think,
pandemic was
yeah.
so hard on us.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it was
Mm-hmm.
so hard for us to not be in front of audiences for
Mm-hmm.
years.
Mm-hmm. So I want them to feel the magic, and I want it happen to be here in the United
Hmm.
States.
Hmm.
So, through dancing, I like to have like cultural exchange. I want to bring
Uh-huh.
Japanese culture here, and also they want to learn American, this cool culture too.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do, like, near
Hmm.
future, not like, far away, like
Right. We need to
soon.
collaborate on that. We should
Yes,
work
please.
together. And if
Yeah.
anyone's watching at home,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, I still am connected with people I'm connected with, but this is amazing. I would love something like that to be able to help facilitate bringing people, even for summer intensives, for a
Mm-hmm.
week of training, for a month of training in the summer to LA, to New York. And
Mm-hmm.
because if you go one time and you have that experience, it will light the
Mm-hmm.
fire
Mm-hmm.
that you're
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to go back to New York.
Mm-hmm.
You did
Mm-hmm.
this. You went to Canada. You took the risk and you were scared and you did it, and it only inspired you
Mm-hmm.
to go for your dreams. And those dreams completely changed to something wild and crazier and a different side, but you would have never had the courage to say, I'm going to step out and do things that scare me if you wouldn't have taken that first step and go to Canada or come to Radio City. So yeah, if anybody else out there is watching and you want to start doing some type of exchange program where we're bringing in students who want to train for the summer, contact me, contact Rio on Instagram. I would love to do that. It'd be so much fun.
Yes, it
It'd
will
be
be.
like, I think everyone deserves that chance,
Yeah.
and it's life changing. So We have to. What's your school called in Japan?
In Japan, so it's my mom's name and my name in it. Ikuko. I as Ikuko, R as Riyo Mori, IRM Dance Academy.
I love that. And how many students do you have now?
We have about 100 students.
Wow. And it's still in your town, or have you moved it to like a bigger city?
No, we are still in Shizuoka City. Yeah, same,
Oh
same.
my gosh. I
Oh my,
love that.
yeah.
Yeah, we need to take a few dancers over there and
Yes.
and let them train and go to Tokyo and train as well. And then we need to set up something big here where we could do probably dance center or collaborations with different training programs like Millennium in LA and just give them a full experience to come
Yeah.
and see shows and be exposed to the different opportunities. It just depends on what type of dancers they want to be. All right, let's move on to one other quick topic. I want to get your read on it. The least complaining person I know on the planet is Riyo Mori. Doesn't voice opinions about things that are strong often because she's not confrontational. But I do have a section of my show called The Ick Factor, and I had shared it with you as well. This is not something that Rio is extremely familiar with. How I hate it when people step on the back of my shoe when we're walking and like your shoe almost comes off. It makes me so mad. I want to go back to you boarding a plane using your crown and sash as your ID to fly domestically as Miss Universe. How do you feel whenever you're on a plane and you're landing and the plane is full and people try to rush to the front or like
Oh,
try to push past you to be the first to leave the flight? What goes on in your head there?
I hate that. Who likes that?
Yeah,
Because
I'm like, why are
yeah.
you? They're not going to open the door faster to the plane.
Mhm.
So you're not going to
Mhm.
get off here really faster. And also, what makes you think you can just push past everybody and get off the
Right?
plane?
Yeah.
It's so
I mean,
crazy, and
mhm.
it's always someone who's like smaller, and they're just like shoving you out of the way.
And I hate that like noise that they take off the click click click, they take off the buckle like as soon as plane landed, like, okay,
Uh-huh.
chill, calm down.
Yeah, that is a really good thought. It makes me anxious like immediately when you can hear as soon as the plane like comes to a stop and it
Uh-huh.
rocks back, you can hear like 20, 30 seatbelts going off.
Yeah. Yes. That makes me nervous. Like, okay, do I have to do it? Like, do I have to be like, ready to go on a 3, 2, 1 race?
Yeah, and
Like,
I'm like, we have like 10 more minutes before you're gonna be able to get up.
yeah.
And not everybody can stand in the aisle. You don't need to stand in the aisle and wait. And you definitely don't need to push past people and start trying to rush to the front.
Right.
Like your flight is more important than everybody else's. Even if you're running late. If we're running late, everyone on the plane is running late. So
Mm-hmm.
don't be shoving past me because Rio's out here traveling with no ID. So if she goes to jail, she's not gonna be able to get out of jail with a crown and sash.
Ah,
So also, do you get the ick, or do you like it when people clap whenever the plane lands?
I don't know.
When they like applaud? Have you seen this when people applaud when the plane lands?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see that sometimes. I'm like, okay.
I hate
Yeah.
that. I think people are clapping for the bare minimum. When
Mm-hmm.
I get on the plane, my only expectation is that we are going to get there and land
Yep.
safely. That is
Mm-hmm.
your job. So when the person does just their job, the one job I needed, that is not above and beyond stellar performance for me. I'm like, why are you clapping? Because in your
Right.
head you were thinking what we weren't gonna land, or
Mm-hmm.
that don't clap for that. Like that is
Don't do that.
that's the purpose. We should have. That's the least of our expectations. If they're funny on the microphone, let's clap for that. But other than that, no applause for landing. That is the minimum expectation here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has been so good talking to you, and I'm really thankful that you took the time
Oh,
to be
thank you.
here. I can't believe we got to catch up after all this time, and you're just still continuing to do such amazing things. Are you going to Miss Universe this year? Or you have any plans to do anything with affiliated with Miss Universe anytime soon?
For now, no, I don't have any thing yet, but I love to collaborate with them in the future, like anytime.
Hmm. And I know that they reach out at weird times to be like, "Hey, we're gonna do this thing. Do you want to go be part of it or whatever the
Mhm.
production?"
Mhm. Mhm.
It's also been through a lot of changes in the last like
Mhm.
decade or so, and I'm sure
Yeah.
that's hard for you to navigate something that you're part of a very historic organization, and
Mhm.
they're changing quite a bit. The
Yeah.
the first Miss Japan was what year? The first Miss Japan to win Miss Universe?
The very
Nin-
first one?
No, the first there's only two Miss Japans who won Miss Universe.
Yes, the
The
first
who,
one.
the first one was like 19.
I don't want to give a wrong information. Let me Google. I'm
Yes, I want to
sure.
know what she looked like. Do we have photos of her?
Um, yeah, I think so.
It
Yeah,
wasn't it like in the 50s or something?
yeah, I think it was 50 something. It was like I was like, 48 years after I won.
Uh-huh.
So
So she
48
would have been
years
like
ago.
1959 or something like that. Somewhere around
Yeah,
there. That's so crazy. So 50 years later, then you do it. You go. And
yeah.
has there been another Miss Japan Miss Universe since you?
No,
Not
unfortunately,
yet.
no, not yet.
Do
Oh, she
you?
won in 1959.
There we go. What's her name?
Akiko Kojima.
I want to look her up and see what she looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Because she probably was not alive whenever you won Miss Universe.
She was still, yeah, she was, yeah.
Did you ever
But
meet her?
no, I never get to meet her because she is, she wants to keep her privacy. And
Oh.
I think media found her, but they asked her to, talk about the pageant, but I think she chose to have a quiet,
Yeah,
like,
48 years later, she probably doesn't want to like be mixed up in it too much. But that would have been cool for you to meet her.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it
Yeah,
will be
that's
honor.
so amazing.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep on dancing. Let's keep in touch. We will
Yes.
work on. We want to bring your students here and
Yes.
do a collab. Bring
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
IRM students, and keep inspiring people and future
Mm-hmm.
generations to like
Yes.
try new things, get out there and do it. So
Yes.
I really want to thank you for being here today. It's been so
Oh,
amazing
thank you
catching
so
up.
much. It was so much
I
fun. Thank
love
you
it.
so much.
I love it. And we'll be in touch. So thanks for
Yeah.
coming to be part of the Name Dropper podcast.
Anytime. Thank you so much.